Hi there, and welcome to another interview. Today I've got the fabulous Britt with me, and I'm going to ask Britt the question asked absolutely every guest. Hey Britt, why did you become carnivore?
Hello, thank you so much for having me. The loaded question, right? So I have an interesting journey. I did not jump out of the gate carnivore, like I know a lot of people did. I kind of eased in with a low carb approach. So I've been low carb ketogenic for the better part of the last probably, 15 17 years. And so I started that as a teenager, diagnosed with PCOS, struggled with my weight most of my life, super active in sports and constantly getting tested for surely it's thyroid, surely it's this and that. And long story short, went through all the nutritionists, dietitians, poster child for virtually every weight loss program out there. I could always lose the weight. I could never keep it off. And so I came across a fabulous doctor actually at the Cleveland Clinic, started with an endocrinologist with my PCOS diagnosis. And she referred me to a nutritionist, a dietitian there that for once recommended low carb. And so I give a lot of credit for that, being about 17 years ago. And so that kind of kicked off my low carb journey. I lost a substantial amount of weight pretty quickly, actually in college. So that was an interesting time being low carb. Still enjoyed myself and had a social life. And my friends knew I took the bun off of the chicken sandwiches and the burgers, and that's just what I did. And so, from there, I hadn't quite learned that this was a lifestyle. For me, going into it, it was very much I need to get the weight off. I want to feel better. Back then, especially, if I'm being completely honest, it was more about the weight loss. Women, I think, have a lot of pressure on us. And I think it's tough being young and struggling with things like PCOS. And I was always told it was, three times, I gain weight three times quicker than the average person with a diagnosis like that. And it's really hard to lose. And so I think that information I clung on to for a long time and made it part of my identity. And so that made things, I think, a lot harder on me. So I was always very eager to lose the weight like I had done in the past and then going back to being normal, like everyone else. And when can I have sandwiches again? And, because you have to eat a sandwich for lunch here in America, especially. So I went through my 20s and kind of yo-yoed. And so, I would go back to normal eating. I would gain weight rapidly. I would then go back to low carb, like before my wedding and doing the wedding diet, lost a significant amount of weight. It looked great for my wedding day. And then I went back to being normal. So it was the yo-yo effect. Eventually, I hit rock bottom moment, 28 years old, biggest I had ever been. I had gained back the 70 pounds I had lost twice at that point, and put on an additional 20. And I was full on insulin resistant. I knew I was pre-diabetic. I was petrified to go to the doctor because it was always horrible news, and always about weight. And just no solutions. And I felt miserable. I was depressed. I had debilitating anxiety and I didn't know what to do. And I knew what to do. And I didn't think I wanted to do it because I didn't understand at that point that it needed to become a lifestyle. And I know people hate the whole lifestyle change, but when you're pretty broken and when you hit a pretty rock bottom moment, I think that can hit differently. And so for me, yes, of course, I wanted to lose weight like all the other times, but I wanted my life to change. I wanted to be happy. I wanted to be a more positive person. I wanted to show up for people who loved and cared about me. I was super supportive, wonderful husband and family, and I'm very blessed in that way. And I couldn't see in myself what other people saw in me. I didn't love myself enough, I would say, sadly, to really go there. And so I did what other people do, I did the Whole30, because of course the Whole30 is the ultimate. Are you familiar with the Whole30 diet? Yeah.
Absolutely.
So yeah. I did the Whole30, lost like 16 pounds in a month, and, you know, making my own mayonnaise. Everything was clean. Everything was hard and unsustainable for me. But I felt amazing. So then I was like, perfect, I'll be paleo because this makes sense. So came off of that and found myself pretty much, if it was a plantain chip or a potato or nuts, then I was having endless amounts, and the weight loss stopped pretty quickly. And I was very gravitating, you know, to those foods and wondering why it wasn't working anymore. Eventually found ketogenic and low carb, and I was like, oh, this looks familiar. I've done this and it helped me. So kind of transitioned that paleo, pulled the carbohydrates out of it, kept it clean, increased my protein, lost about 60 pounds my first year. A little slower weight loss after that, a little bit of inconsistencies in and out. Fast forward a couple years later, I found carnivore, and it made total sense to me, knowing what I know and learning through weight loss and over time how certain foods, even being health foods, started kind of affecting me differently. My energy, my gut health, feeling bloated, inflammation, those things that I kind of felt from carbohydrates, I was noticing I was feeling a little bit from vegetables that were told to have endless amounts. And so the carnivore thing was like a total, like, mind-blowing thing for me, for sure. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is like scary, but it makes sense, and I don't know. And I'm like a crazy researcher, so I just dove down the rabbit hole. Dr. Ken Berry, Dr. Anthony Chafee, all the greats. And so I went carnivore about a year and a half ago, lost the last 20 pounds. Definitely saw massive benefits in mental health at that point as well. Ketogenic helped that, but I would say carnivore took it to another level for me. And now it feels incredibly sustainable. And I think I rewrote what's normal to me. That's a short story.
Yeah, but that's fabulous. And it's all packed in there. I mean, one of the things about the Whole30 is that it has what is known as the reintroduction phase. And I think that's possibly where it all goes wrong, because it can be successful, as you experienced there. And this is the difference, I think, between that and carnivore. Carnivore, you just admit, well, these foods are not good for me, so I'm not going to try and reintroduce them. Like you laughingly said, when can I have sandwiches again? Well, you know, I was the sandwich king for a little while when I was doing bodybuilding and high carb. I don't miss sandwiches, you know, and I know that if I had a sandwich, I would not feel great. And I think this is perfect. What you said is one of my favourite opening gambits, because you ticked all the boxes for me. It's been a long transition. You went low carb, then you went keto, and you snuck in that keto was really good for your anxiety, which it definitely is. But there's always a piece missing, like you say, in the jigsaw, and it could be plant-based material, it could be breads, whatever it is, sweet stuff, fat bombs, and carnivore eradicates all that. And I think, you know, when you said about people like Ken Berry, it's just so simple to listen to, and it is such sense. So can I ask you sort of, not the nicest of questions, but the PCOS, has that changed? Has that gone?
Yes, it has. And I can tell you from what I know about PCOS, and, you know, women have different symptoms with this. Mine, but really the syndrome itself is a very symptom-based syndrome, right? And so for me, my mom, who's also incredible, and she's a crazy researcher herself, she found an article in Health Magazine, and it was describing symptoms of PCOS, and I checked all the boxes. And so she is really the one I can thank, you know, about really seeing that. And so to answer your question, I didn't ever have like cysts and like things like that on my ovaries that I know some women do experience, but I had massive weight gain. I had major insulin resistance. I had irregular periods, especially. So I had to be on, well, I didn't probably have to be, but what they do with these young women is they put them on birth control at a young age, and to get their cycles regulated, and it will force regulation. But unfortunately, it's not addressing root cause. And so I'm a huge advocate for not going that route with women. And I have worked with moms with teenagers, just like myself, too, to really voice that, because I think it's so, so important. Because I can tell you through my weight loss, it has completely reversed all my symptoms of PCOS. So we haven't started a family yet. And so that's the next journey of, fertility. And so I'm very realistic that there could always be issues there. And that's a huge symptom and problem for many women with PCOS. However, knowing what I know through diet and root cause healing, like I have a normal cycle for the first time in 15 years without any form of intervention. Obviously the fat went away. Obviously the insulin resistance went away. My fasting insulin's a 2.9. All my chronic, I will say, inflammation that I had is gone. My CRP is less than 1. So pretty remarkable. And this was all through diet and lifestyle.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I'm sure Dr. Robert Kiltz, who's a carnivore doctor, really into fertility, and he's got hundreds of stories of this sort of thing. At least once a week, I get somebody tell me on Instagram how stupid I am because I think PCOS can be reversed. And then I always say to them, well, I've got about 100 people I've got to email that and tell them that their body better than they do, even though they're living in their body. So, right, I find it fascinating that people don't want to even entertain the thought that this way of eating can reverse the symptoms of PCOS, even though I have real people constantly telling me it did. It's frightening.
Well,
isn't it?
It's worth saying again for that person to know that PCOS can absolutely be reversed completely and entirely. And what's interesting, it can also come back. So when through weight loss in the past, when I was ketogenic, all my symptoms got better. My cycle did regulate in my early 20s and all that. And then guess what happened? When I went back to eating normal and excessive carbohydrates, and all my insulin resistance came back and my cycle went away. So yes, it can come and go depending on what your choices are. Absolutely. And I'm living proof. And I love Dr. Kiltz. I have to tell you, I met him at Hack Your Health in Austin, Texas a couple weeks ago and talked to him personally. He took me by the arm to his booth, gave me all of his books, his new organ supplements. He's like maybe one of my favorite people of all time.
Excellent. He's one of our guests on our 24-hour live stream. I don't know if you know about this. Last year, myself and Richard Smith, we hosted the world's first carnivore 24-hour live stream on YouTube, and Robert was one of the guests on there, and so was Chafee. And this year we've got all the guests coming back, and Ken Berry's going to drop in. And it's just a 24-hour chat about carnivore with back-to-back guests. So hopefully you're tuning to that. Maybe next year we'll have you on as a guest.
I would absolutely tune into that. That's like basically all my celebrities. I'm the biggest fan.
Brilliant. So I always get told off for not talking about practicalities, so we'll get these out of the way. Are you OMAD, 2MAD? Are you doing alternate day fasting? What is your regime at the moment?
So intermittent fasting for sure. There's a lot of debate out there about women and fasting. I've been doing intermittent fasting for years. It makes me feel amazing. So I eat realistically probably like a 16-8, fast for 16 hours, eat in an 8-hour window. And I'm more of a 2MAD with a snack, if that makes sense. So I'm a higher protein, low carb keto carnivore. I would say I'm more ketovore. So get that from Nisha, Berry. And so I probably fall in that category. Very meat heavy diet, eggs, minimal dairy, and a little avocado. So that's kind of like where I dabble. But yeah, I love starting my day with a big protein dense meal after fasted, probably around between 12, 2 o'clock, depending on when I'm hungry. And then I'll usually do like a protein smoothie, beef isolate, love Equip. So that's what I use. And then finish the day with a large meal for dinner. So find that that's where I feel my best and more normal, I guess, too. I really don't snack anymore. That was something that I had to pull back on quite a bit when I was more ketogenic. And to your point, I feel like when I started keto, it was before it was super mainstream and maybe cool. And so we didn't have like the Lily's chocolate and all like the stuff, on the market. And so if I wanted something, and I remember specifically making like ketogenic cheesecakes, and it's a pain. I mean, like, it's a commitment. So if I wanted something like a treat like that, I had to make it. So I didn't do it often, So it's like, I really will attribute that that's probably why I had so much success with my weight loss, but also feeling amazing, because those things were not so accessible. As soon as they became more accessible, my weight loss started stalling. So whole food approach has always been what works for me. And then over time, pulling back on the nuts, pulling back on all the whist, and really the packaged foods and the snacks. Once I did that, it helped me even more with my insulin resistance and definitely weight loss. So I just say that because I'm really big about not snacking, to be honest, especially with women when it comes to weight loss specifically. So 2 big meals a day and a smoothie to hit my protein goal.
Yeah, and I think with snacking, often it isn't about hunger, it's about boredom or emotional eating, and it can be a trigger to then eat more and more. And it's a slippery slope, I think. So some people can't moderate, they have to abstain. I think your friend Courtney is one of those people that's very big on abstaining. Also, I just want to say to close down any comments before we get any further, yes, you did say you have an avocado, and yes, that isn't an animal. So please don't put in the comments, she's not carnivore, that's not an animal, because I will say to you, do you know what? If you're drinking water, that's not an animal. If you're having salt, that's not an animal. Okay, so let's just stop those comments before they even start. I think people on the carnivore diet, if they have occasional things like that, and it works, that's great. That's absolutely. And coffee isn't an animal, by the way, is it? Or tea. So anyway, right. That's one of my favourite things to do, because there will be someone that says, it's not an animal. It's like, yeah, well, okay.
I welcome it. I like a little controversy, it's okay. I used to get really nervous about that, but now it kind of excites me. I probably do get that from Courtney, who is a friend of mine. But I'm with you. I fall in the camp that you got to have reasons for doing things. And so for me, I'm very dialed into my body. I'm super in tune to how foods make me feel, down to very specific animals themselves and different types of proteins. So chicken makes me feel different than a ribeye. And so, you got to dial into what works for you. And avocados don't affect me as far as I know right now, and they make me happy. So therefore, I eat them when I feel like them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a really interesting thing that maybe I should expand my comment as well then, because that's true. Many people struggle with pork or chicken, in particular those two, or dairy. They'll say my body composition isn't going the right way. Well, dairy is obviously from an animal. So I think that's the thing. We need to be realistic and less militant. I think that's the thing, and more inclusive for people. If someone is eating carnivore and they're 90% carnivore, they're still going to be 10% in the top 10% of people when it comes to health, because they're eating 90% carnivore. So let's make the group more inclusive, not less inclusive. I think it's also really fascinating that you were lucky to meet a nutritionist many years ago who recommended low carb. I think, wow, I've not really heard that before. That's incredible, isn't it?
It was pretty incredible. And yeah, I mean, just especially linking it to PCOS, because I think what's really important about that, what people don't realize, is that PCOS is very closely linked to insulin resistance, I would argue, in virtually every case. And so that was a really big deal, that someone could pick up on that to say, all right, well, your numbers, your A1C, these things, you are borderline. I was never full on diabetic, because I feel like at the end of the day, when you're sick, we're all just waiting for a diagnosis almost. It's like, tell me what's wrong with me, and then give me the pill to make me better. And then it's almost more frustrating, if I'm being completely honest, that it's like, I felt terrible. I had all these symptoms and I was always borderline. Thyroid is borderline off. You're borderline diabetic. You're like, give me something. And it's like, perfect. Here's meat. And pull off the bread and stop consuming sugar all day and see how you feel in a couple of days. I mean, it's pretty remarkable. So yes, I was, even back then, they gave me gosh, they're like the keto sticks. So it's literally like to test my ketones. And now I do that through, and I kind of know better. The urine analysis strips are not super accurate, but that's what I was using back then. And then I even dabbled with this, like also kind of controversial, but the Maria Emmerich and Craig talk a lot about this, but protein sparing modified fast. And so I did that for a period of time. I don't recommend that long term, and I don't know if I recommend it at all for women, if I'm being completely honest, because of the lower fat. But that helped me regulate things quickly in terms of inflammation and stuff. So, and that was all through the Cleveland Clinic, which was pretty remarkable.
Yeah, I think it is remarkable. Now, one of the things we haven't touched on is muscle, because you're a big proponent of building muscle, especially for aging. So could you just tell us a little bit about your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a huge one, and I'll say it touches me personally. My mom is diagnosed osteoporosis, and so she was, gosh, I think she got that diagnosis maybe like in her 50s or so. And she's always taking good care of herself, maybe after having 3 kids and over the course of, 10 years, put on a little weight that she didn't quite like. So around the time that I went keto, so did she, because she's my girl and my best friend, and we kind of did it together. She lost 30 pounds. She then started getting just moving a little bit more. But long story short, she found OsteoStrong. And so this is a Dr. Shakrish, who's pretty incredible. I also met him at Hack Your Health, which was like a huge moment for me because his program has completely transformed the game for my mom. And another myth, along with reversing PCOS, is that you can't reverse osteoporosis, and you absolutely can. And my mom is in her late 60s. She eats a meat-heavy, close to carnivore-ish diet, down 30 pounds and reversing osteoporosis through strength training. So I just say that because I'm such a huge advocate of women, especially getting comfortable building muscle. I think on my own journey with weight loss, it was always this game of cardio. And when you walk into a gym, who do you see on all of the cardio pieces of equipment, the elliptical and the treadmill? It's all the women. And all the men are in the weight room. And it's incredibly polarizing. It's also incredibly intimidating. And I can understand that too. And so, I'm a big fan of Dr. Gabrielle Lyon too. And she talks a lot about this with women. But I think we have to understand that it's far beyond just looking better and looking different. Women are petrified to bulk, and I was too. And I can tell you my body got leaner and smaller the more muscle I built, and I looked a lot better. And so that's a massive myth that I think women have to get over mentally. But beyond just that and aesthetics is, I think what it comes down to, it's a protein game and a muscle game. And I really do think it's the difference in aging well. And people who are falling at 55 years old, at 60 years old, and breaking a hip. And I think that that's, the biggest difference. And so I talk about this a ton, using my mom as that example, because my mom has fallen. I mean, she's not old, but like accidentally, and been fine. When I would argue if she didn't eat the amount of quality protein that she eats and strength trains and does this osteotherapy, I think that she could have broken a hip and gone down a really miserable and awful path that I think people do every day. And so with that being said, lift weights. Don't be afraid of lifting weights, women, and eating your protein.
Yeah, I think that's one of the best sections I've ever heard actually about muscle building. So that's really great. I take my hat off to you. I mean, I'm 60 and I still engage in the rough and tumble of soccer. And I think you're right. If I didn't have plenty of protein and fats, I might have a few injuries. Now at 60 doing that, it's a contact sport. And, I'm playing with players that are sort of in their 30s. So it's tough to keep up, but it's the best thing you can do, a bit of movement, because what's the alternative? Sitting at home and actually becoming sedentary and losing your muscle and losing your your joint stability, lifting weights. I liked what you said there. I mean, I would say that is very true, that many people on the cardio machines are women in the main, and in the weights, it is in the main men. I think that is true. I used to be a spin instructor, and that was predominantly women, and I couldn't stand it, because we were never talking about nutrition. They'd just come in and they'd cycle for 45 minutes, be sweating,
sweat,
and not look any different, And I remember trying to change how the gym operated, the spin, and to talk about nutrition, and actually to get off the bike and incorporate some weights, and they didn't want it. The women wanted it, but the gym didn't. So off I went, because I do want to believe in everything I'm doing, and I like results. And I think one of the things about this way of eating, since I've been doing this a decade now, so I'm a bit like you, low carb, keto, then carnivore. Before that, I was a personal trainer, and I believed in the carbohydrate model, high carbs. I didn't get results. I got some, but then this way, it's just results after results after results. So it's great. I wouldn't mind having your mum on, actually, to talk about the OsteoStrong, because that's really interesting. But is she a bit shy?
No, she's not. I put her on blast all the time, because she has such a relatable story, and she should come on and talk to you seriously. And so I could talk to her about that, because it is remarkable. And I was proud of her. She actually hosted, who was it? The Primal Bod. Do you follow the Primal Bod? She always has her wild reels. But she's a wealth of knowledge too. And she was talking about osteoporosis the other day, and someone commented it's not reversible. And my mom got in the comments, and which is like that's not her character necessarily. I mean, I like to kind of, dabble and ruffle feathers in the comments. But she put her results, and she said that is not true. I am living proof. And put that in there. And I was so proud of her, because it's another thing we're told. And you just wonder, who started that? And we still believe it. It's a game of telephone, So it's like you're told over and over that fat is bad, and you're going to believe it, and that you can't reverse PCOS, and that you can't reverse osteoporosis, and then all of these things we're all just supposed to lay down and die, I guess. And so I think, first of all, what you're doing is remarkable. Playing soccer. My brother-in-law's Scottish, actually, and so he's a big football fan, and so that's big in our house in general. But I think that that's incredible, and it's just a testimony and truth. If you don't use it, you lose it. So it's like, keep it up, and you don't have to. I think women especially, and I know this from even my mom, is, I think we're afraid of injury and maybe just getting older, right? That's not just exclusively to women, of course. And I think that that's the hard thing. So it's like, you don't have to be crazy about it. Definitely partner with a professional. I do as well. I'm certainly not a trainer. I actually just signed up for a new program with an online personal trainer for myself, because I also care about proper form, and I want results, and I don't know what I'm doing half the time either. So it's like, take the decision fatigue out of it and partner with a professional, especially if you're afraid of something like injury, and just get out there. Everyone has to start somewhere too. It's never too late.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I mean, going back to OsteoStrong, the guy also invented the X3 bar, and I did 18 months with the X3 bar. Brilliant bit of kit, which is resistance bands for working. So, yeah.
So did you love it? I need to know your experience with that, because I tested it out at Hack Your Health, and I was joking with him, and I was like, I'm pretty sure that he said he would send me one for free. And he was like, I did not say that. So I was like really testing the waters there. But did you love it?
I did. I really loved it, and I got results from it. I missed the social side of the gym. I am an advanced personal trainer. I've trained people, got them to the Olympics and all this sort of stuff. So if you ever want an online program, not you because you're sorted, but if anyone watching, you can contact me. Yeah, I thought it was quite remarkable, and I was doing a sort of YouTube experiment for 18 weeks where I deliberately gained weight I gained 25 pounds. And then over the next 6 weeks, I lost 27 pounds. And I did it all every single Sunday. I was doing a live stream with Coach Raymond. And one of the things I was doing was the X3 bar. But that wasn't for the weight loss. That was for the body composition. So yeah, it's a brilliant bit of kit. I think I only do sort of like a 40-minute interview. So if you've got more to say, I'll have you back on. But for now, how would you like to end the interview? Is there anything you particularly want to say to people?
Well, thank you so much for having me. This flew by and you're phenomenal. And so I appreciate it. I guess I'll just share, what I do. So I coach other women with specifically emphasis on weight loss and lifestyle change. And so I host what I call the Health Edit 6-week reset. And I don't call it a challenge. I don't call it a temporary thing. It's a good way to reset, your habits, your nutrition. We focus a lot on that. So I think nutrition is first and foremost when wanting to make a health change or lose weight, and then a habit shift and mindset. So I talk a lot about your environment, your mindset. We have a very intentionally small support group of like-minded women chasing after similar goals. And so if anyone needs any extra support, I love helping other people. And I think you're best equipped to help the person you used to be. And so I feel like that's my passion and where I like to support. So I'm on Instagram.
And the links will be in the description. So it's easy. You can just click on the link and away you go. We don't have to spell it out for people. And if you're a regular listener, by the way, and you're detecting a slight huskiness in my voice, it is the Euro 2024 football tournament at the moment. So occasionally I'm shouting at the television. Anyway, thanks for listening. And if you are listening on the audio podcast, do try and check out the YouTube because the before and after photographs of Britt are truly amazing. So, Britt, thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much.